everybody. Welcome to the Forgotten Horror Podcast. I'm Davey Dark. Unfortunately, my partner in crime, Ant, can't be here today. I think he's trying some money off. But instead, I've got a very, very special guest. You know him from the Slaughtered Lamb podcast. It's Mr. Darren Sands. How are you doing, Darren?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. This is I'm really pleased to be here, even though I sort of invited myself on. I've been watching you guys now for such a long time with the little videos that you and Ant do. And thanks, Ant, for letting me sit in your chair whilst you're out today. And I've really enjoyed everything you've done. You know, in the same way that you found interest in the stuff that I've done on '80s videos and stuff. I can really relate to the content you and Ant do as well. So it's exciting. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's brilliant because what I liked is what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some VHS memories, because your childhood and my childhood are basically mirrors, because we're the same age and we got through the same stuff. So we're going to educate a few people on some of the UK British history of VHS films and what it was like back in the day.
Oh yeah. It was such a risk. Just watching a horror film was just like you putting yourself at risk all the time. Risk of a fine, risk of being raided, risk of going to prison. The place just went nuts for a few years, didn't it? It was just ridiculous.
Well, it was. People don't comprehend today, Darren, that how serious it was. If you were caught watching a horror film, you could go to prison. The police would raid your house. It was like doing a drug deal today in today's world. It was such a no-no. But like you said, it made it all the more exciting doing that sort of stuff.
It just made it all the more desirable to get your hands on these films. And my dad, who was a copper at the time, he'd be horrified if he knew the lengths I went to get my hands on some of these films. Meeting strangers in the town centre at 9 o'clock at night to do an exchange of a couple of quid for a Tesco's carrier bag full of cannibal movies or whatever. It's always a friend of a friend or someone that you know from school or something like that. And I would buy these movies, and they weren't original copies at all. They were pirated copies. So I don't know whether the risk of getting a bother was amplified even more by having a pirate copy of a banned film. But yeah, I'd watch some of this stuff, and the guy my dealer, he would put clips of the other movies that he had. So you'd end up with some, I don't know, grubby little clip of The Last House on the Left or Tenebrae or something like that. So next week when you got your paper round money, you'd go back and buy something else. It was all really exciting, but when you look back at it, it's kind of like, sounds really seedy, doesn't it?
It does because it changed. That's how simple. That's how simple was out the times were back then. I mean, we had two video shops in my town where I grew up. We had like a family-friendly sort of video shop, and then we had the seedy one above a clothes shop, little back storeroom, and with all crusty sort of characters going in there. This is where my sister and her friends, because my sister and her friends like 6 years older than me and you, Darren. So they were teenagers when these things come out, and I was just a little brat watching them. So all this happened, and I can remember it as clear as day because these memories really stand out because they shape your childhood, and they shape your life. And that's where we get our love of horror films from, or not just horror films, from all films. I mean, as I said, I grew up watching. My first VHSs that I ever watched was Bruce Lee's. But as we was talking earlier, my family had to rent a VHS player and a TV because it was so old, and we had this VHS, this JVC VHS top loader, and it was, like you said, it was big as furniture. It was heavy as a house.
Yeah. And your telly was covered in wood,
Old.
They they took two people to carry them. It's not like now where you can quite easily lift a 60-inch TV off the wall yourself. Back then, this was it was like getting a removal company in to install a television.
We had one TV, and it was 3 channels on it, I think. And somebody put the idea of putting it onto wheels for movability. So we'd be sat there, and our house had a bit of subsidence, so the TV would start rolling off. So you'd be having your tea or something, and you'd watch the film roll. Grab the TV.
I'd forgotten that tellies came on wheels.
Some of them did,
they did. I always remember the school TVs when they would wheel them around to different rooms so you could watch, I don't know, words and pictures or whatever was on TV. But
they had covers on.
They had those covers to block the sunlight out, didn't they?
Like the sides, and they could.
I remember my first experience of a funeral was watching Lord Mountbatten's funeral at school on the TV with those big shields around the telly. You're all sat on the floor, and the thing was up there.
Rosslyn, get it? And it was on like hyper legs. It was like War of the Worlds, wouldn't it? With hyper legs, and we're all sat there watching this thing go up. And we're sat there watching this little screen with these big screens protecting the screen. It was like War of the Worlds.
It was.
Watching this. There was more frame than screen. There was
terrible.
The speaker, the one mono speaker to the left. And it vibrated like hell.
Did you ever, I've got to ask you this, did you ever see any of these movies at school?
No.
No?
Not the horror, not the horror ones. We did see a couple of VHSs as a treat round about Christmas time or just when we were winding down for summer. But there was never horror films. They
Watership
were
Down
like
and
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Watership Down.
I remember. I mean, there were never horror films. We did watch. I don't know why the teacher let us do this. 2 films. One was, but I think when I was probably in like the 5th form or something like that. Someone brought in a pirate copy of RoboCop, and we watched that in the class.
Wow!
He just was sat there marking books while the TV was on, showing the whole class RoboCop. And then the other thing that I remember was when I was at middle school, they put on Smokey and the Bandit 3. Okay. Now 1 and 2 were PGs. No one checked. 3 was a 15. And there was a topless scene in it. And teachers had never checked the content of the film. They just thought, Smokey and the Bandit, it'll be fine for the kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, the whole class was I
do remember when I was in senior school, because I collected a lot of VHSs from the get-go. I was really fortunate that my video shop would sell me some. I'd have to save me, like you, as a paperboy, so I'd have to save me paperboy money up to buy one. And my mum and dad, well, my mum mainly, my grandma, would throw me a couple of pounds to help me, But I remember taking in, when I was in the school, I was about 14, 15, I took the original Terminator in, and that was a certificate 18 on the Orion label.
Yeah.
And so I just stuck that, and our technical drawing teacher, Mr. Meadowcroft, I think he was, he just stuck it in the VHS and played it. He didn't care. He didn't give a monkeys. He was sat there reading probably one of the topless magazines of the day behind his newspaper, and we were watching Terminator. And I think he paid attention when the love scene come on between Linda Hamilton and Mike and Bean.
Yes.
It was like, what have I put on? And we're all like, hey!
Imagine that now. There would be hell on if they put a film on, like, I don't know. The
school would be closed down. The school would be closed down now.
Yeah. Imagine an 18-rated movie going on in a school these days. It would be just... Well, it'd make front page news.
the teacher said, "Has anybody got any VHSs?" And we all sort of chuckled because there was all these pirate videos going around, dodgy ones that your dad had watched shadily. When
How?
you know, and I said, sir, I said, I've got a collection of VHS tapes. And he said, "Oh, have you? Yeah. I said, yeah. I said, I'll bring one in." So I discussed with the lads because it was a technical drawing class, so it was all lads. So I said, "What do you want, lads?" I said, "I've got Terminator," because I wanted something a bit more modern. I couldn't bring Driller Killer in. Or Night Beast.
Yeah.
I said, I saved that for my birthday parties. To traumatise the kids when I was younger at my birthday parties. So anyway, they picked the Terminator, so I brought Terminator in, and like you say, it was an 18 certificate, and I was, 15
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah. How did you find out about what was available in terms of the nasties? Obviously, there was video shops, but then when all these kind of sort of dealers sort of surfaced that you could buy second generation copies and things like that. Did you have like was it like me when he would put clips on there, or did he have a printed list that would get shared around? I think I remember a few printed lists, sort of A to Z's of what was available.
Very shady printed lists of what he had in it. Because there was one of my dad's friends. My dad was a darter, as you know, and one of his friends, his brother owned a video shop, and he was very in the know. Now, he was a shady character because he used to do pirate. He was our dealer. I think it was Derek.
Eric, okay.
Derek. We'll go and see our Derek. See what he's got for you. Man, and Derek did have some things. I mean, don't let the name fool you, folks. He come in and he had an Austin Allegro, and in the back of the Austin Allegro was all these tapes. Some of them were legit. A lot of them were pirates, and he had he got some sort of catalogue, and he'd come up and he'd say, "Right now, what do you want, cock?" I was, I've got this, cock. What have you got? What are you into?" And go and see Derek. You know what I mean? So he was one of my dad's dart team members. So I saw a lot. I saw a few through Derek. The original Mad Max was one of them, and it was the uncut version before Warner Brothers trimmed it the second time. I saw Halloween 2 from Derek, and we had a few from Derek. But in our town, Darren, the video shop, the family-friendly video shop, was the nice one where all the families are going. It'd be a social place. We had another video shop just down the street above a clothes shop, and it was a seedy hangout job. And that guy would get in all the absurd and the Cannibal Holocaust and I Spit on Your Grave, where the other video shop did have them. He did stock them, but you'd see more of it in this seedy little one. And eventually I got, because I was obsessed with them at that time. I was obsessed with these films. I'd go in and rent these films. It's largely thanks to my sister and her friends who rented them, because they were teenagers and they rented them all.
Yeah.
So I'd go onto our flea market, and there'd be video stalls from all across the Northwest, from your area, from Bradford, from Manchester, from Liverpool, Warrington, Ashton, Wigan. And they'd have a couple of stalls on the market, and it'd be piled high with VHS. You'd have to dig for them all. But I'd ask the fella, "Have you got Dawn of the Dead on?" Or, "Oh yeah, I've got it. Halloween. I've got my first Halloween tape."
On the media release.
Yes, that's the one. I've mixed them all up now because we've been messing. But
on the Channel 5 one.
No, it's not the Channel 5 one. It's the
Excellent.
It's the actual first media release with the recommendations of other titles on the back.
All right, okay.
Remember them?
What else did they? Oh, they did Assault on Precinct 13 as well, right?
And Flesh Gordon.
Flesh Gordon.
Roller Boogie.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. George Clooney.
Yeah. Can I do it till I need glasses?
Excellent. So did they not do another release that had some pictures on the back as well?
They did another release by media, and it was the black cover. I've got it there behind me. Let me just. And they started putting the screenshots on.
Yes.
There you go. That was the black media release.
And was that pre-cert?
Yes, it was. It was released a year or so after the blue one.
Okay.
I picked that one up for £1.50.
Okay, it's great condition. And is that the original box as well?
It is, yeah, it is. It's what it came in. It's what it came in. So some of them was the original, some of them was swapped out, but the tape it's in
That's
pretty
fantastic.
good condition for what it is. However, because I've played it so many times, Darren, and the age of it, it's almost black and white.
Really?
Jamie Lee Curtis looks like she's 7 foot because it's dead thin, because the film's been played. So I got that. I got that for the second version, and that version's similar. It's been played to death. So I ended up getting a sell-through one in the mid-90s, one of the small sell-through ones with a classic shot of Myers on the stairs. It's still up there, but just so it didn't wear them two out.
That honestly, the nothing that the tracking could sort out. Then those issues with that playback.
Oh, you've brought it up now, mate. That tracking. I've got one of my videos here. It said snowy lines, rolling picture, best use the tracking, and it's actual sticker on. Which one is it on? I think it might be on. Oh, wait, it is. Remember that one?
Mausoleum. God, yeah, I remember that. I never saw it. Was it good?
No, it was shit. Like a lot of them, it's crap. However, though, it's got a charm to it. If you watch it, you probably like it. A woman gets possessed, and they use the same mausoleum that they use in Nightmare on Elm Street at the beginning.
Oh, really?
With John Saxon as the funeral of
the lad.
One. Yeah, and it's the mausoleum there. It's the same mausoleum they use. Well, this is the tape that says snowy picture, white lines.
You know what's going on here? What video company is it?
This is Video Space.
Video Space have got another line in cocaine. I'm telling you. If you ask the right questions, I've got white lines on my video. Is there anything you could do about it?
And they supply you with mausoleum. That one's got white lines, mate, and it rolls a bit.
Oh, fantastic!
Oh, mate. Well, I've got to show you this one because one of your videos that captivated me was obviously your memories of Halloween because they were so close to mine. But there you go.
Oh, great.
The memories of Halloween 2.
Yeah.
And this is our favourite sequel. I can say that because obviously I'm a huge fan of you and Frank. And I'm speechless that I'm actually talking to you, to be honest, mate, because I feel like I've known you 40 years, 50 years. I feel like we went to school together because we've got a lot of the same tales. But there's that firework that you go on about.
It's a fantastic shot.
Gulf,
absolutely. It is. I mean, and that's on that bit there. It looks like it's actually starting to burn down. But but the actual, I mean, Dick Warlock. I mean, when you saw, I don't know if you saw recently the interview with him and Sean Clark.
Yeah.
Really sweet old guy now, and I think he's in his 80s or something. But the fact that he did that stunt, I think he said he did it 2 or 3 times, and it is. I can't think of a movie, maybe the original Thing from the 50s, where somebody is that engulfed in flames, like from head to foot, whereas you can't even identify that there's a man underneath it because there's so much fire. And I know he's got you can see he's got a fireproof suit on and all that kind of stuff, but boy, does he need it, because that must have been, he bats it off as not being the most difficult stunt on the movie. He said the most difficult stunt was the car crash in the street.
Ben Tramer.
Yeah. But that, I mean, every time I watch it, I'm in awe of it because I just think it is. I mean, forget Jason when he's on fire. Forget Freddy in Elm Street when he's running around the house on fire. This is something else. This is a different league altogether. It just looks incredible.
I was the same. When I can remember watching that, and even my dad, who was not a fan of horror, my dad said, he ain't coming back from that one. Because he just come walking up the flames. And I've never seen anybody that engulfed. And I know I've seen the interview with Sean, and I know Dick passes it off as it was no big deal.
Yeah.
But to us, we were like, that man. So there's the tape.
Brilliant.
With the Thormy MI. Yeah, they released a copy of your favorite video, Nasty, and they released a copy of it uncut to the horror of of the executives, and they had to put a notice out to recall it. And you know what I'm talking about.
The Burning. Fantastic.
Look at that cover.
Yeah. Which was never used in the US. They had a more kind of, they had some artwork, didn't they? That
looks pretty intense.
It does. And I don't know, is it actually a still from the film? Is it a real snapshot from when Cropsy's running out?
I think
because he's moving so fast.
I think it's from a different camera angle.
So it could be like a publicity shot or something.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it was it must have been a separate take or something.
Yeah,
because it's from a different angle.
Mm.
Because if you watch the film, you see him falling out, and he does the twirling. He reminds me a bit of Freddy Krueger when he's doing the twirl, and then he falls down into the lake. These boxes though open weird on some of the film. They open from behind, and if you're not expecting it, you can damage your tape by pulling it out.
Is it not the sleeve in the wrong way?
No. It's the actual box. That's the way it was. That's how it was made. Because there's the Thormy MI label.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, Halloween 2 opens normally, but the Burning, this one opens from the back. So the cover's on the front.
Yeah.
So what happened is they recalled it. They released this uncut, and then they recalled it because it was the full uncut version. So what happened is, we touched on it before when we were talking, they stamp dated it.
Yeah. So they actually removed the tape from the actual cassette and replaced it.
Yeah.
Or did they send a brand new cassette that was just stamped? That's what I've never been able to understand.
To me, I think they've just replaced the spools because the running time's still the same on the stickers. Both files 87 minutes. And then the naughty one, because our CD video shop never sent these back, it's now unstamped. And it's still 87 minutes.
Yeah.
But they've just replaced the spools.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Did you ever remember when you rented a video, you could also take home a trailer tape as well?
Yes.
And Thorny MI did some of the, two companies in mind that did great trailer tapes were Thorny MI and Embassy.
Yes.
Avco Embassy did amazing trailer tapes where you would, and it was all done to the music of Escape from New York.
That's
Action speaks louder than words. And they would just put a compilation of all their movies to the theme from Escape from New York.
Yeah.
They were a treat, and they didn't charge for them as well. They would just let you take them home. But I always remember the trailer tapes for the Thorny MI films because it had Orca on there, it had The Burning, it had Halloween 2, Death Wish. What was
like that? Was it
Death Ship? Death Ship. That was it. That was the one. There was another one as well. I
saw a First Blood trailer on one at Thormy MI.
Yes.
First Blood.
Tommy always popped up on there as a trailer.
Yeah, Tommy, and then Orca the killer whale right after
Orca. Yeah, no, those trailer tapes, fantastic.
Wow.
Really, really good.
And it was always see the end of tape for more for more titles. Always.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They would put them on after the film as well, wouldn't they?
After the credits rolled, we'd see coming soon.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, what's coming next? The next part. And I saw a Halloween 2 clip. There was a Halloween 2 clip on one of them. And I was like, that's it. That's the one. Because I got to see Halloween 2 on a Derek had brought Halloween 2.
Your dealer.
Derek, the dealer Derek. He brought Halloween 2 before it was released on VHS, which it would have been 82 in the UK, because we received our VHSs 6 to 8 months after the release in America.
Yeah.
So Halloween would have been halfway through 1979, and then 80 was when videos were made. So we, Darren, only got to see Halloween 1980, 81-ish.
Yeah. What does it have on that media release you've got there? Does it have an actual date on when it was manufactured, or does it just have the movie 1978 date?
Just says circa 1978 here on the bottom, Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
There's no actual date on the tape or anything. Made in the USA, media.
One of the things that I love explaining to because I don't have any kids, but I love explaining to my nephews. I've got quite a few nieces and nephews, and I love explaining to them that when you wanted to see a film, when I was a kid, you'd go to the video shop, and if someone else in the town had borrowed that film, you had to wait until it came back.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't like, now where you can just switch on the telly and play whatever you want. You literally had to wait. Sometimes you had to get on a waiting list, and then you'd go back on the day that it was supposed to. Have you ever waited in a video shop until someone brought it back? And
I've almost strangled a few people because you had them overnight, didn't you? Because it was overnight rentals. If it'd be a Friday night, we'd go in and say, "Oh, this bugger." You know what I mean? You're waiting for something. And the box, the family-friendly video shop would have their own cases. So they'd take the cassette, they'd take out that and put it in the reel-to-reel video cases. So you take home the cases to preserve the box.
Mm.
So the case would be on the shelf on the out section behind you.
Yeah.
So you'd be waiting for them to come in.
Or it would have a little red tag on it that they slipped into the top of the sleeve that said film on loan or something.
That's right. Well, ours was just put behind us. In the family-friendly one, ours was just put behind on the rented shelves. Yeah. So you could see, because they only had one copy of each film. No one was that rich. The video shops only had one copy. And then the CD video shop, they didn't have their own cases, so people took home the home things. And that's where my sister's boyfriend did a bit of skullduggery. And he half-inched a few of them. And they just had a card inside with a number on, your video number, and your details in a notepad, because there was no computers, really. No. Stored with your name and address. It was just a handshake and a nod.
Yeah, that's it. They just took your name and address. Name and address, had a little Rolodex with your details on it, and that was it. It wasn't until the likes of Ritz Video and Blockbuster, when they came along, that there was a computer database of and this would probably be in the early 90s or something.
Late 80s.
Late 80s, early 90s. Yeah. But they would get multiple copies.
Yeah.
Like, Lethal Weapon 2 came out, I remember, and they'd just have a whole wall of maybe 15 or 20 copies of it. So the chances of going there and it being in were a lot better. And if it wasn't in, you could just loiter around waiting for someone to come back and then pounce on it at the counter. You
hijacked the people coming in, didn't you?
Yeah.
every time the doorbell would go beep beep, and you'd be like that. Everybody would be running to the door. That's my Thriller Killer. I've been stood here for 4 hours.
And there was always that power trip as well by the person behind the counter who would kind of like just put it aside, and you're like waiting for them to stick it back on the shelf or something. Just get it out there, for God's sake. Put it back up there. I want to take that. It was hard. It was it was a big struggle trying to watch a film when you were in your early teens in the UK.
I've never ever seen my dad lose his cool in public. Very rare he lost his cool, because my dad's like a very shy, quiet character, proper St. Helens man. You know what I mean? He's shy within himself, and he was waiting for something for himself. I'm not sure. I think it was First Blood. Because the video shop had phoned up because as a kid, I was watching Bruce Lee's, and they got to know us. The video shop owner got to know us, and I ended up going on a Saturday afternoon, and helping Tom in the video shop, because I was obsessed. Yeah. And my payment was I could take a film home for the night, and I could help myself to all the posters, the movie posters. Wow. Oh, so my old bedroom was wall pasted with posters.
Elm Street 2.
Which was so inappropriate for a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Was that poster of unknown origin with the naked woman with the rat on her back.
Oh, yeah.
And my grandma walked in and she went, "Oh, look at that." And my granddad said, "He's growing up now, the lad is." Gone are the days of Superman.
Yeah.
But yeah, with my dad, he was waiting for First Blood. And he'd been waiting patiently. So the video shop had phoned him and said, "Hey, John, First Blood, it's coming back," because it was just being released. He said, "It's coming back soon," because he knew the bloke who got it. So my dad, mild-mannered man, he went back and he waited for it. And he was sat there and he bumped into one of his darts buddies, so he was gassing. First Blood come back, got put back on the shelf, and somebody else had come in and rented it. Why he still got? And I tell you what, the air turned blue. He come stomping back home with his woodbine in his mouth.
Woodbine.
The woodbines. And he was fuming, Darren. He was fuming. Bloody swine! Took it from under me nose.
It was territorial. It was so competitive. Like one copy of a movie in a whole town. It was like, how the hell was people expected to see these films?
There was anarchy. He wanted to kill people. He wanted to kill people over VHS tapes. That's my film.
But then, like corner shops and things like that started getting in on the act, didn't they? They started. They wouldn't have many, but they'd have a decent selection.
They'd have one of them spinning things, had sunglasses on. You could still see in the shop near us. You could still see the sunglasses make on the top of the sticker, and it'd been ripped off, and they'd sprise the openings so you could put VHSs on them. And there was a few.
I saw a lot of crap in the early 80s simply because my dad, being a frugal Yorkshireman, there was a shop at the bottom of our road that it was like an off license that had VHSs in there, and all the new releases, like at the time it would be things like Superman 3 was in there. Wow. Were all £1.
Yeah, but
you could get 2 for £1 of all the old shit.
That was
and
it.
My dad would never take out one of the new movies. He would always get 2 movies for £1.
That's it,
regardless of what they were. You know what I mean? I remember, I don't mind the movie, but stuff like Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things and Vice Squad or something like that would be 50p each.
Yeah.
But yet the good stuff, Superman 3, Empire Strikes Back, all the kind of big titles across the top,
were all
£1. Yeah.
And then they put it up to £1.25p. There was uproar in our town. I think it was Gremlins or something. The first Gremlins, and Tom had put it up to £1.25p. So there was a line of people with their hands on their hips. £1.25p. You're having a laugh. I could gutter down the road, to the shady one above the clothes shop, and I could pay £1 for it. 25p.
But eventually they dropped down to that kind of 50p section eventually, but by then they were wrecked.
Well, all the strokes that had them out there, they'd rob the covers out of them. It was a photocopied cover. Remember the first photocopied covers?
Yeah.
Oh no, the boxes had been stolen. See, obviously, my sister and her friends had the way with a lot of these tapes because they'd bring home that was advertised in that video, and straight away my sister said, "Rob will have that," and Rob by name, Rob by an H. You know what I mean? And he did. That's why I ended up with the damn thing in a black plastic bag. But it was the same. He had, and after Halloween 1 and 2, Halloween 1 and 2 obviously made, like you, they made a huge impression on us.
Mm.
And that was it. For me, I'm probably for you, that's where it ends. Halloween 2, for me and you, is probably where it ends because he was dead. You know, then they made Halloween 3, and I remember that coming out, and which cemented he was dead. But after that, Dawn of the Dead was the next one that come out.
Mm-hmm.
That my sister's boyfriend. Have you ever seen this?
That's fantastic.
Dawn of the Dead. And I remember he went to the shady video shop and he rented this one. Is
that halfway through at the moment?
Yeah. It was just there was a knock on the door and they took it out of the video. It was on section 3, wasn't it?
It was. It was on section 3. For those of you that don't know, the nasties were divided up into three sections. And you know, titles like, I guess, I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left, House on the Edge of the Park, Absurd. They were all on one. And then I think, was The Burning on one? The Burning and Evil Dead?
Yeah. They were on
and
one.
Then 2 and 3 were, you know, you could get prosecuted. Like you could get prosecuted for having a title that was on section 1. Section 2, you could still get prosecuted, but it was less likely.
They tried it.
Yeah.
It was that was like the failed prosecutions, and section 3 was where they never bothered. Because section 2
they were all
failed,
they were flagged movies, weren't they? They were sort of like potentially harmful.
but if you were caught with any of them, you were done. And I remember the raids that went on, and it was completely absurd. It was ridiculous. But like you said, it was exciting. So somebody's probably been sat there watching Dawn of the Dead, and there's been a knock on the door, and they've ripped it out.
That's probably what it is.
Yeah, because people don't believe you when they say they knock on the door. They try and get you watching these and this, because the shady video shops would still try and hire them until the police come knocking on their door. And I remember that one of the video shop, the guy Tommy said, "I'm going to have no videos left. They're taking all of them." Because they were just squeezing them.
So what happened? Because remember, you told me that, and if you don't want to talk about this, we'll not. But you said that you got raided a couple of times.
Twice.
Yeah. What were the consequences of that?
They didn't find anything because I did them. My sister just gave them to me, because once that list come out, Darren, that was it. It was open season.
Yeah.
Both video shops every week were being raided by the police. They were just raiding because they only had 2 video shops, and they only had 1 copy of each, like we said. So they already confiscated as much of the video nasty lists as they could. So they were just kept going back, popping in from time to time to see if they've got them back in. Well, my sister and her friends, obviously they were my friend's sister's boyfriend, dead shady, so he'd half-inched a few because it was only a handshake and a false address he'd given.
Well, you know why they were persistent like that? It's because they wanted to watch them themselves.
Of course. He could see you watching them, probably, you know. So, yeah, we got raided. There was a knock on the door, and my mum answered the door. It was the police, and first thing, what's he done now? Oh, what's he done now? No, madam, it's a VHS search. These video nasties, as you know, it's now a law. It's illegal to own these VHS tapes. Have you seen any of these, or do you have any of these in your establishment? They were proper by the book, Darren. But then my mum would say, "Oh, come on in. Do you want a cup of tea?" I was like, "Oh." So I'd be like hiding these stuff in the attic, as you said, in this big sideboard that we used to have in my dad's loft. It's still there to this day. So I just hid loads of them in there because the drawers were dead thick, and it was huge. It was like it looked like an old church organ, something out the Goonies. That big organ with skulls on the played. It was something like that. It'd have been a ton weight. You couldn't have moved it. How it didn't fall through the roof? It was that heavy. So I hid a lot of this tapes away from, because we got raided twice. So to my mum's knowledge, we never had nothing. She knew nothing about it. Like your parents found out what you were doing, then you wouldn't.
They'd have been horrified if they knew. I mean, they knew I watched some of this stuff, but it was always a case of, I think, I borrowed it off someone at school, or a friend gave it to me or something. It wasn't that I was kind of arranging to meet some older bloke in the middle of a town centre while I was like 12, 13 years old, to do this kind of exchange of a couple of quid for a grubby Spar carrier bag. It was
that sounds so wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But in all honesty, it worked out quite well, because that particular guy, I still know to this day. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's been a friend for years. Yeah. So it all sort of worked out all right. There was, he was a bit like, I guess he was a bit like Derek the dealer, but he never got done himself.
No,
you're there getting raided, but the bloody suppliers never get their collar felt, do they?
I saw that Austin Allegro doing at least 40 mile an hour down the common road just to get out of the town. It hit 40 going out there, and it was Derek flying down, almost went into the park. It was crazy. He flew down the road because he had a trunk full. His Austin Allegro was full of all these shady videos, and I thought, if he's going there, it'd be like 5 years each tape, probably.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
He had them all. He had them all in the back of his. So he was hightailing it out of there. And his brother, who had the video shop, they kept an eye on him because they knew about Derek. But we'd always have to stash him somewhere.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It was crazy. I mean,
it was crazy. Hysteria for no reason at all.
Yeah, there was that time, people wouldn't believe us, Dan. They think we'd be liars.
Yeah.
When it was like crazy. So obviously I picked up a few, to show you.
Right. Fantastic.
The strong uncut version. They released 2 versions, and this was the strong uncut version because Vipco, the director, realised they could get away with going under the loophole, and they released the strong uncut version. So that was the fully uncut version with
those pictures on the back there.
Yeah, with the splinter in the eye. Well, this one's actually been rewound, so they probably watched it once and said never again. So it never got snatched out of the video player.
It's interesting. Is it Zombie Flesh Eaters? I think when I first saw it, I was a little kind of, I guess, put off by the dubbing, which kind of throws me a little bit when I'm watching those films. But over the years, I mean, because I was always a huge Dawn of the Dead fan. We talked about this earlier about, how important that film is to us both.
Was, yeah.
And, I wanted everything to be like Dawn of the Dead.
I was the same.
Flesh Eaters is a different kind of zombie movie, but once you start to appreciate his craft and what he did for the genre,
you get into it.
You really get into it, and the makeup is insane. Those grubby, sweaty, flaky, horrible, pasty zombies that are in Fulci's films. Really upsetting to see some of those. Like the guy on the boat. Fantastic. It's exactly it. I mean, there's a few in that film that There's a few in that film I mean, the guy on the boat at the start, the big guy, that is, I mean, it's just horrific looking, you know. And towards the end as well, you get a good look at some of those guys. I mean, the effects work was just incredible. I mean, we were talking earlier off camera about the Beyond, and Fulci's effects guy was just amazing. There's a shot in the Beyond where the girl's head gets blown apart.
Yeah.
And to this day, when I watch that, I just think, are you sure they didn't actually do this?
Yeah, there's nothing like it, is there?
It's fantastic.
I mean, the Fulci movies are the only movies, like they say the Gates of Hell trilogy, they're the only films, Darren, that when you see the bites and the stuff, the gore, it actually does put me off eating. I can't eat anything while I'm watching a Fulci. You know, if it's the Beyond,
there was
or
something.
Dead.
There's something slightly polished about Dawn of the Dead, even though you look back at it now and with the pie fight and all that kind of stuff, it does look a bit ridiculous. Yeah. But there was something slightly polished and slightly mainstream about Dawn of the Dead.
It looked clean.
When you start. It did, yeah. And it had this really exciting soundtrack with it as well, and action sequences, and it wasn't just a horror film; it was like horror and action throughout.
And it's elements of comedy as well.
Yeah, oh yeah.
There was humor in it as well.
Yeah, but when I started watching Fulci stuff and a few other things that Italian horror films and some of the cannibal stuff as well,
that was the hardcore, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was something about it that was like, I'm looking over my shoulder all the time, making sure that no one's going to walk in when I'm watching this. I remember New York Ripper. I remember seeing that for the first time, and I was like, shit a brick. If my mum walks in at the moment when I'm watching this, she'll sling me out.
Because they were really graphic, violent films, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you can understand, I mean, us as kids watching going, yeah, more blood. But even us were like, ooh, that is a bit, you know what I mean? But if your parents caught you watching it, because my mum and dad used to go out on a Friday, my mum used to watch my dad play darts. So Friday, all my sister's friends used to come into our house because we had we'd rented the video and the TV. So there was about 15 people in our living room crowding around this massive TV with wooden legs, like.
Oh yeah, I mean, you were the talk of the street if you had a. It's like you were the talk of the street when you got a VHS player, and you were the talk of the street if you got a video camera.
Oh, that again. But people don't believe you. People think, it's far fetched. We're not. We're telling it as it is. If you had a video camera, you were something special. Derek had one. Derek had
I'm sure.
And I was like, hey, what's going on there with Derek? No, he's trying to make his own films. I thought, enough said.
I know. I remember I was chatting to Frank, who's the co-host on our channel, and he said that his mum and dad got a video camera when he was about 10 or 12 years old, and he said he never saw one video come from that video camera.
No, I wonder why. No, I mean, back then, though, it was absolutely insanity, especially when the video nasties list hit, because no horror film was safe then. Did you? Yeah. You'll know this. They even cut Halloween 3. They trimmed Halloween 3.
Yes, in the bed with Atkins's real life wife, Marge getting
Gutman
shot in the face. Marge Gutman, yeah.
And I think there's a scene where they pull the guy's head off.
Yes. Yeah.
Squirts of blood. I think that might have been trimmed as well. So it took me about 20 years when I saw it on DVD to see the full uncut Halloween 3.
Well, believe it or not, Halloween 3 was shown on television over here with that scene in.
Wow.
Before it was on any VHS or DVD. Yeah. The uncut version of Halloween was shown on TV. I don't know how that happened, but it's and I like Halloween 3. I've got a real soft spot for Halloween 3. I didn't used to, but over the years I've just kind of I think it's a really good film. Like a Twilight Zone episode.
It got such a backlash when it got released. I remember the backlash because we'd had Halloween 2, and we saw the ending of Halloween 2, and then Halloween 3 cemented that, because I remember the post saying, "The night no one comes home."
That's right.
And we were all like, "Oh, this is going to be great!" What's he going to do? What's Myers going to do this time? And because my sister to this day is freaked out by Michael Myers, she just cannot stand the music, the white mask. She hates. That's the one character that gets to is Michael Myers, the original. Like a lot of us. So when Halloween 3 came out and it was this other story, people would say, "Well, where's Michael?" And then straight away, people said, "Yeah, but he got shot in the eyes and he burnt. You saw him engulfed.
Yeah.
He ain't coming back." And then they were watching Halloween in Halloween 3. And I think, well, that cemented that he'd gone.
Yeah.
And over
Different
the years,
universe.
people like you, Darren, people like you and me, we've got quite a strong love for Halloween 3 because it was part of that universe.
Yeah. And it felt like a Halloween film as well, even though Myers wasn't in it. But you had the same crew, Tommy Lee Wallace, who was involved in the other films, Dean Cundy, all that. Same cast members.
Too. Yeah.
Nancy Loomis was in there, and it just felt like part of that world, the John Carpenter's world. But yeah, I love it. I love the film.
Yeah, the first 3 Halloween films for me, that's it.
Yeah,
because I think after when he came back, I know Halloween 4 was a big deal, and I've even still found the original video shop poster of Halloween 4 from when the video shop said, "Here, I've put it aside for you," back when it was like 89 or something, when it came out on VHS. You saw that on the cinema, Halloween 4.
So I worked in a small 4-screen cinema in Shipley in West Yorkshire, and we were one of the very few cinemas in the country to actually, because it was released so limitedly. We were one of the very few cinemas to get that film, and it was busy. It was busy. I remember. I mean, it was only a 100-seater auditorium or something, but I remember watching it in there, and it was busy. And then this was 2 years. Halloween 5 had already been out in the US at this point.
We were way behind.
This was early 1990.
Yeah.
So there was almost like an 18-month gap between coming out in the US and coming out in the UK. Yeah. But the ending came along and was like, oh, Michael Myers is gone, buried, all that kind of stuff. But we knew he was coming back because we knew there was a Halloween 5 from Fangoria and all those things, those magazines and that. Yeah. So it was Halloween franchise has been so fucked up in this country in terms of its releases. Some of them at the cinema, some of them not at the cinema, some straight to VHS. It's been the different companies owning the rights to it, so that it was a long time before we could get any sort of box set because they were all owned by different people.
That's right.
But yeah, it's my favorite horror franchise, but I could go to bed quite happily knowing they're never going to make another film. Absolutely. In the Halloween franchise. Well, I've got 1 and 2, and that's all that matters.
Well, that's it. I collect 1 and 2, mainly 1 and 2 behind me. It was like an obsession. Yeah. I have to get this, and I counted the other day for Anthony. I counted. He said, "How many editions of Halloween have you got?" I said, "Well, I've got 36, just of Halloween 1. 36,
bloody hell!
36 editions of just Halloween 1." From VHSs to DVDs to Blu-rays to the 4K Steelbooks to it never ended, Darren, and I had to stop because
have you got the incorrect DVD release where they released it with the wrong color grade and it looks really washed out? It's the 25th anniversary. Let me grab it. 2 seconds. Right, it's right there. What is it?
Yeah. Right. Was that the
Divimax or something? Divimax.
The American version, or was it the UK version?
It's the American version, and I mean, it's got a lot of stuff on there, and it's the first time that A Cut Above the Rest documentary was included. But the grade for the film it looks completely different to any other version that you've seen. And not long after it was released, they turned around and said that it was the incorrect version that they've sent out, and I think they recalled it and replaced them and things. But yeah, it's that's the original.
I've only got the UK version of it. I was meant to buy it, but for whatever reason, I didn't pick the American version up. But I've got silly editions of it just for different covers and stuff.
Yeah,
it's absolutely ridiculous. But what I was saying is, Halloween 4 was never on the cinema in my neck of the woods. So I had to wait for the VHS, like you said, and we were delayed a while. But I found the video shops, and they are, Dave.
Did that giving you that stop you loitering in the shop?
No, no.
Yeah, Dave, go on.
Take this and go away. No, there you
That's
go.
Great.
That is from 1989, so it's probably
That's brilliant, isn't it?
It's older than most people on the channels.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. Very, very thin now, but you can see where they've ripped it off with the.
What was the company? Brave
World, wasn't it?
Brave World. That was
Brave World. I've got the X rental VHS as well up there. I've got them all on X rental VHSs up to Resurrection, everyone's favourite. But on the DVD front and the Blu-ray front, I only go to Halloween 2, and then I've got the remakes because at that point I just wanted something different, and obviously Rob Zombie give you something different, so I collected them, and that's it.
Yeah.
But wow!
I mean, you could obsess and go on forever collecting stuff from this film, and there's still that Aladdin's Cave of footage that's out there that guy Billy Kirkus owns.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see that.
Yeah, and apparently it's Mustafa Akkad that's stopping him from releasing it. I think if it does get released, I think I remember hearing Sean Clark say that he has first refusal on doing a documentary or an episode about it. But I remember about 10, 12 years ago, and myself and Dave McRae were searching this out recently, whereas he released a tiny bit of footage from it, which was Nick Castle dancing on the lawn after he's been shot out the window.
Yeah.
Doing a little dance on the like a vaudeville type thing.
Dave had a still of it, I think.
Yeah. And he apparently there is enough footage. There's hours of stuff, but it's all different camera angles and different takes and things like that. There's enough footage there. I remember an interview with him where he said that he could actually piece together the whole film again and make it look completely different because it's all this different takes and different shots. And hopefully one day, I mean, why doesn't Mustafa Akkad realize that people will pay a lot of money? It doesn't have to have any sort of narrative or anything like that. Just put it on a disc or a website or somewhere where people can buy it and access it. You'll make a shit ton of money off of it.
They will probably save it for a 50th anniversary or 100th, probably long after we're gone.
Or maybe the convention this year. Maybe they'll do something there with it. But it's one of those things that I'd just love to see it. I'd love to see what's in there.
Oh, me too. Because Halloween 1 and 2 made a huge impression on me. And that Bruce Lee sort of took a back seat then.
Was that Bruce Lee or Bruce Lie or Bruce?
No, it was the real Bruce Lee.
So many videos, weren't there, with rip-off Bruce Lee titles and things.
What happened was, because there was only 4 films when Enter the Dragon, I'd watched them to death. And in the end, the video shop got so sick of me, they actually sold them to me.
Really?
So I still got them. And so I've still got the VHSs from the video shop. They were the first ones they ever bought. And as you know, back then, video shops didn't sell films. There was you couldn't get no sell-through was out in Woolies. They come out in around 86, 87 when sell through, but
That's right.
I
Yeah.
was rare because I'd bought stuff from the video shop and off the flea market.
Yeah.
But those films, Halloween, they made a huge impression
Mm.
on me. And then after that, obviously, my sister's boyfriend brought Dawn of the Dead, and because I love Dawn of the Dead, and to think they had a shopping mall all to themselves. And the only thing I said to you before, the only thing comparison that I'd ever known in them days was the Manchester Arndale Centre from the 70s. Because they weren't available, it was like, wow, this big
Yeah.
new world. So Dawn of the Dead was bigger than life.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
you, I wanted all Dead films to be like that, and they just weren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they gave it a good stab with Day of the Dead, which, I love Day of the Dead as well. Not as much as Dawn, but I really do feel a sense of claustrophobia and like doom when I watch Day of the Dead. That's it. That's the entertainment in video. Yeah,
that's
fantastic.
the one, and that's the video. Well, we were talking before, and I couldn't remember when we joined Ritz to rent because they had more than one copy. It was Day of the Dead. It was Day of the Dead. They had a wall of Day of the Deads when it was released.
Fantastic.
And I was like, come on. So I got in my dad's three-wheel and we'd driven 4-5 miles to St. Helens to the nearest Ritz to rent Day of the Dead.
That's great. And great pictures on the back as well. Rather than spoiling the film, showing Michael Myers on fire and things like that. Yeah, great pictures.
Yeah.
I had a guy on our Facebook group the other day just chime in and say that he'd just recently watched Day of the Dead and it was shit. And I was like, really? He said it doesn't hold up at all. And I thought, I disagree. I think it's Savini's best work by a long shot. I know he's really fond of The Prowler, thinks that's some of his best work, which is good. But Day of the Dead, I mean, the effects work in that film and the performances as well. I still, to this day, and I talked about this recently, when the guy gets bitten and they have to sever his arm, that machete, it looks real. It looks like they've actually done it. And it's the way she grinds across the tarmac to separate it as well. And then they cauterize it. That whole thing just looks incredible.
Somebody's uploaded the full Day of the Dead film on YouTube. And I was showing it to Jilly the other night. And that scene where they sever the arm, I showed Jill, I said, look at that. This is 1985. Look at these effects. And she was mesmerized. She was like, that looks real. Because you can see his fingers moving. And then, but Day of the Dead was, for me, it runs a close second. And I also love the soundtrack to Day of the Dead.
I have a signed copy of the soundtrack by John Harrison. Yeah. I've got a signed copy of Creepshow. Was it La La Land or Entrada? One of them were doing, for the first 100 or whatever, were doing signed copies of Creepshow and Day of the Dead, and I managed to get them both. The soundtrack on Day of the Dead's superb. Really, and
that's one of my all-time favorite soundtracks is Day of the Dead. The rhythm, the themes, it's been sampled by countless.
There's a suite, isn't there? That's like about 15 minutes long or something. It's just like one continuous track from the film.
Doesn't it? And they released it. I think they released it as a special edition, and they added the soundtrack with the zombies. You can hear the zombies in it as well, and the bits of the zombies, the diner of the dead and stuff. But there's some tremendous music on Day of the Dead. I love that soundtrack.
In total contrast to Zombie's soundtrack, Zombie Flesh Eaters, which sounds like somebody on a bloody Rolf Harris stylophone or something, doesn't it?
Somebody on a block and spieling the music.
It is. It's terrible, that opening theme.
Sounds like the ZX Spectrum game loaded.
Loading, yeah, it does.
Here you go, Darren. I've just pulled one out.
Hey, look at that. I struggle with that film.
It's not one. Me and Ant did a video on it.
I saw
long ago, and it just separates. You know what I mean? It's just, again.
Please rewind film if you have the energy after watching this.
Yeah, if you've got the stomach. if you've got the stomach, and it's one of them that was arrived via the plastic bag.
Yeah.
I never purchased that. I never purchased that one. That one arrived via the plastic bag.
Old Diodato. Christ almighty, that's
along
a tough watch.
with that one.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen the Bogeyman?
No, never seen it. I remember that video, but I never saw it because it was, to me, it was like, are they riffing on Halloween with this?
Well, they did,
you know,
but I like it for its own merits, though, Dan. I recommend you watch it. It isn't too bad. It's one of the better ones.
Okay.
So I recommend the Bogeyman for you. And then the last one he shoved in the bag was, I've just shown before, was the trilogy.
That's
again, still in the Midco box.
Yeah.
A good one. A good one from Derek.
Yeah. They're in excellent nick, aren't they?
Well, it was like a treasure chest when I opened up that chest in the attic, in my dad's attic. It really was like the Goonies finding Chester Copperpot's map and that. I opened up each drawer, had stuff in, and I was like, wow, he's not got rid of all of them. So then, obviously, The Evil Dead.
Yeah. Superb. You could solve a small country's debt by selling those, probably.
One day, but obviously because it's you, I just had to pick out that as well.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
The original.
I always never got the pictures on the back. There's so much good stuff in that film, but it's just publicity still of David Norton and Jenny Agutter lying in the sack.
Yeah.
There's that one good picture of him there with the hand, and then a picture of him in the dress, in the coat.
But again, going back to the video days, Darren, this cover, I'd see this as a child and think, wow. It was the cover just as much as the films. The cover sometimes was better than some of the films.
Oh, yeah. And in most instances, a lot of the time, the covers were better than the films.
They played a big part of our childhoods, and to me, that's why they're so important. They're so important because I can remember, we were laughing, and then we were Zombie Lake.
Yeah.
We were just.
Yeah, I always remember that blonde lady's hole in her neck there. Yeah.
And we saw that when I was a child in the video shop. I'd be like, "Oh, look at that!"
It was fascinating to see that level of violence on the front cover of magazine of VHS covers.
If the show is that on the cover, what's the film going to be like?
Exactly. But that was it.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, they did. I mean, they realized that they could make a lot of money because there was no real guidance in terms of what they could and couldn't put on these covers. Yeah. They were just exploiting the films and making tons of money from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you were, as we were saying earlier, unless you were Thorn EMI, who just put like someone's dissertation on the back of the box rather than any pictures or anything like that. I remember Flash Gordon, Orca, was it like Southern Comfort or something like that? All just had like an essay on the back rather than actual pictures Southern or anything.
Orca.
Yeah, it was Orca. Great fun.
These are tremendous films. You watch them now, you think, oof. And some of them have held up pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them have been made really well made because now I think CGI effects over a lot of the films now. Where slow burn the characters, and you have to sit there and watch then you get the payoff with the great effects, which were all practical. I sat down the night and remember you guys reminded me of Madman.
Oh yeah, Madman Mars.
It was on the video nasty list, but it got put onto another list. You were talking about Madman Mars.
It's the hot tub scene. Is that 15 or is it 18? Yeah, with Galen
It was
Ross.
released originally with 18. The very first 18, one of the first 18s on the screen, on the covers.
And
But
I
yeah, it
actually
was
didn't
Galen
see
Ross.
that. I actually didn't see that until fairly recently. I never saw it, I don't
Right.
think, as a kid.
No. I got bombarded. My sister bombarded me with every Friday there was of horror. But again, 50p, two for £1. So I was watching two horrors, two of these things. So my brain was going into meltdown. It's no wonder I am like I am. You know what I mean? I'm just sat there like that, watching all these things. So, I mean, some films like me and Aunt did have done House on Sorority Row, The House of Evil, but they all sort of blend. All the sorority they sort of blend in because there's Slumber Party, House on Sorority Row, Pranks, The Dawn That Dripped Blood. They all sort
Yeah.
for me they all merge into one. So
Yeah.
sometimes I can't remember which is which. But I was bombarded, Darren. But like we were talking earlier, seeing all your nasties, I only saw what my sister and her friends are bringing. So I've never seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
there was stuff like
There's a lot of them that
Beast
are
in the Future.
a lot. Oh yeah. There's a lot of them out there that I've no desire to watch whatsoever. I know there's people out there that have collected all of them. There are people out there who've set themselves tasks of watching all of them. But some of them I just look at and go, I've know all these kind of like death camp movies and things like that. I've no interest in watching any of that.
I've got one. I've got that one. SSL camp, experiment camp.
Have you actually watched it?
I can't remember it, and I don't even think. I've no desire to, Darren. You know what I mean? It's on the same label as Cannibal Holocaust.
Is it really?
I was never into it. I was never into that. And it's even got the card with some of the people in there.
Oh, really? What, that rented it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Jesus.
So, again, I've no desire to track that down on Blu-ray. It was not my cup of tea.
I mean, most of these films, apart from the ones that have, I can't rewatch. I find it difficult to rewatch Last House on the Left.
Yeah,
I can. I Spit on Your Grave. I find it difficult to watch that. House on the Edge of the Park. That's another one that's fits into that kind of subgenre as well. Yeah, Demi Moore.
Yeah, it is.
It is. A lot of people don't know that, but that's actually Demi Moore.
Demi Moore's backside, when it's one of her first modelling jobs she did.
Yeah. But
in a biography.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I knew about it, because that little nugget of news just popped up one day, and I think we're really breaking up a little bit now. It might be
time.
Yeah, it's kind of stuttering a little bit. It's been fine up until the last sort of 5 minutes, but
right. Okay, well we'll leave it there, I think, Darren.
Yeah, no, this has been great. I've really enjoyed this chat.
What people don't realise, we talked for 2 hours prior, and we should have recorded all that because we had connection problems on the other one because we were so long talking.
Yeah, we should have recorded from when we first came on, and then you'd have had 3 hours.
That would have been hilarious. I mean, that's an hour and 15 minutes now. You know what I mean? Darren, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you, mate.
No, absolutely, it's been good. Wonderful. I've really enjoyed it.
So
really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, mate, and you're going to the Love of Horror?
I am. I'm going to For the Love of Horror. I'm going to Sheffield HorrorCon, and I'm gonna go to H45 as well. So,
right. That would be good.
Yeah. So I'll be about and around this year at various things.
So yeah, I'll wake up me and Ant and obviously Jilly, as a couple of us going to For the Love of Horror. I'm not sure about Sheffield yet. Depends on money, but but I'll definitely look out for you.
For sure.
and we'll have a meet up. We'll have a beer.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll
Of
have a
course.
chat
Yeah.
because this has been great today. I knew if I got you on if we got you on the channel, we'd not shut up. I like the 2-hour conversation before would have been hilarious. But thank you very much, Darren. It's been a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure, and thanks to Ant as well for letting me come on and
yeah.
space for today. It's been a pleasure coming on.
All right. So this will do it for this episode, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.